There is a picture of Kim K. She's got her laptop open and a sunny day, and she's wearing shades and a bikini. She's studying law books. Just like I remember when I was studying, I was out in a Speedo with my shades on, just, poring over my law books.
That's kind of what I pictured. I mean, how else do you study?
Right, exactly. How one does. Not the law library. We don't need that.
No.
Hey, everybody. It's the world's greatest divorce podcast, the I Just Want This Done Divorce podcast, featuring Rahul Iyer and yours truly, Rayford Dalton Palmer. We are coming at you live from Chi-Town, and we've got some great stuff today. We got an episode, Cooking with Gas. A couple special things for you. I'm going to do an imitation later in the show, so get excited, of a rapper. It will be hilarious, I assure you. And then next, some facts about divorce, marriage, and remarriage in the United States. We've got Kim K's new divorce show coming out. We're talking about that, and Kim K's legal studies and status of her bar results. She's actually gone to law school. Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos, we got a story about that, and an interesting story about the LA family law landscape shifting, about talking about divorce trends. And Sia is a singer winning a battle in a custody war in our celeb divorce news. She apparently has a custody battle going. We're going to talk about that. And then we've got legal questions from the audience we're going to answer about parenting coordinators, people refusing to pay expenses in a judgment, and another question about teenage children refusing to see their parents. Finally, celebrity divorce attorney talking about what Gen Z gets right in relationships. We're always talking about the dating trends and news. We got this covered. And then our favorite Bruce Lee, not the Bruce Lee you remember from the movies, Dr. Bruce Lee, MBA and MD, by the way, with an article talking about Halloween and singles. So we're fully loaded, ready to rock and roll, and we're coming at you. Like, share, subscribe, follow, tell your friends. Okay, first let's get into it. 8 facts about divorce, marriage, and remarriage in the United States. This is from the Pew, P-E-W Research Center. So, it's like legit research, not just something from some TikTok video. It's legit, man. So divorce is an important aspect of family life. This is a quote from the story by Jake Hayes. Divorce is an important aspect of family life in the United States that shapes living arrangements, financial well-being, and parenting. In 2023, over 1.8 million Americans divorced, and our population's 320 million? Something like that. Additionally, a third of Americans who have ever been married have also experienced divorce. So I guess a third of living Americans who have been married have been divorced. Many adults who divorce go on to form new families through cohabitation, remarriage, or having more children. Okay, duh. Thank you. For instance, most adults who divorce, 66%, have gone on to remarry. Fun fact, or interestingly, we always, when we represent people and they say, we talk to them about post-divorce stuff, dating and whatever else they're doing financially. And we mention, hey, if you get married again, you need to get a prenup. And they go, I'm never getting married again. Well, I hate to tell you, statistics show, and we know from our business, they generally get remarried. And the way I explained it to somebody else, I'm divorced and remarried. When you're married once, you're sort of the marrying type. If you've been married before, you kind of show that you liked it. There was something you liked about it. And so generally, in my opinion, and these stats back me up, if you're married once, you're probably going to get married again. 2/3 of people remarry. So among those, 46% who are divorced and remarried, 46% have had a child with their new spouse. There was no way that was happening with me. Thank you very much. Each of us have 2 kids. That's plenty. Here are 8 facts about divorce. We're going to make this quick because we got other stuff on the show. Divorce has been declining since the early 80s. Now, people all say, 50% divorce rate. And Rahul and I have covered this on the show before. It's not 50% anymore. Isn't it, Rahul? It's more like 40.
It's right around 40-ish. Yep.
Yeah, and the peak was in 1980, and it's trended slowly downward to 2008, and it's trended downward quite a bit more to 2023. And marriage rates have declined in recent years. And we've talked about this issue about correlation without causation, or, are we not tying the numbers together correctly? Is it that we're just getting married less often, so divorce rates dropped? Or is the divorce rate dropping in absolute terms, meaning the rate of divorces is dropping, not just in gross numbers, but percentage-wise? So in any event, it says, why is the divorce rate declined? And it says, this has to do with who's most likely to get married. Married population is shifting towards higher levels of education people, and they tend to be less likely to divorce, and they're getting married older, which means they maybe sowed their wild oats, they're more financially stable, blah, blah, blah. One exception to divorce decline is gray divorce, which has risen from 1990 to 2008, but leveled off recently. So there's a significant growth in it between 1990 and '08, and it's down just a little bit through 2023. 4 in 10 divorces occur in the first 10 years of marriage. And that they used to talk about the 7-year itch. There's a movie with that name with Marilyn Monroe, probably an older reference lost on younger viewers. But the idea was after 7 years that you kind of know everything there is to know about somebody after that time. And you have to keep the relationship fresh by doing new things.
And we've talked about this in a previous episode.
That's right. Yeah. And there is some timeline about that. There's research on that. So it talks about how, then nearly a quarter of divorces happen after 25 years. In 2023, a third of Americans who've ever been married reported their first marriage ended in divorce. So it's what we talked about. This doesn't mean that 33% of marriages end in divorce. This is a total number. Interestingly enough, divorced men are less likely than married men to be employed. The opposite is true for women. Okay, I didn't know that. Divorced adults have lower household incomes and less wealth than married adults. Well, that probably doesn't surprise anybody. Maybe they mean the incomes are lower overall, not that they're splitting their income. I don't quite understand that one. Some 9% of men and 4% of women have a stepchild they live with among Americans who are currently remarried. Interesting. Okay. Well, thanks to the Pew people for keeping us on top of the stats.
Yes.
You'd just like to know and keep it simple so we're not spending too much time on that. But thought it was interesting. We like to stay on top of these trends and facts, and Pew Research is a very well-regarded source. So moving on to something a little lighter, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about Kim Kardashian. Rahul's going to tell us about her new show. Tell us about All's Fair.
Brand new show coming out on Hulu starting next week, November 4th is when it's supposed to come out. It's called All's Fair, and it's not reality TV. It's an American legal drama that stars Kim Kardashian, Naomi Watts, etc. And it's about Kardashian, who is a divorce lawyer and owner of an all-female law firm. And it's all the glamour, glitz, and I'm sure it's going to romanticize with some drama, both legal and personal drama, as you would in shows like this with like the meta plot as well as the individual show plot. Curious to see how it goes. I haven't really watched any trailers, but read enough about it where I know, and I'm looking forward to sort of catching it to see how they portray the glamorous and glitzy life that we all lead. So
and Glenn Close is in it, which is wild. Sarah Paulson, Naomi Watts. They've got like an all-star cast here, a lot of stars in this thing. And what's wild is, if you've seen on social media, they're making a big splash with them posing and like dancing around and stuff. And they've got these wild dresses on. They've got to be phenomenal, like designer outfits that are super expensive. And they're posing in this like unbelievable office. And I'm guessing they're going to be like divorce lawyers to the wealthy and celebrities or whatever. I'm sure it's going to be a very realistic, hard-bitten portrayal of the divorce law business. But it reminds me of The Devil Wears Prada, that it's kind of this like glitzy, fashionable. Who was the star in The Devil Wears Prada? I'm spacing out. I don't remember.
Meryl Streep.
Yes. So to me, Glenn Close is kind of in that same vibe of being the kind of ice princess, tough, older lawyer, So yeah, I mean, it's going to be, I probably have to watch it just because we do this show.
Oh, sure. I think it's going to be entertaining. We're going to have to comment
on this thing. It's coming out soon. And it's Kim K. As Rahul said before the show, everything she touches turns to gold. So which leads us to Kim Kardashian. She famously has taken the bar exam and wants to be a lawyer. Why? We don't know at the I Just Want This Done Divorce podcast, but
no idea.
God bless her. She started this journey in 2018. So she's been at this for 7 years. She's got other things going on, like Spanx and whatnot, and making money and pushing it around in a bulldozer. So she's awaiting her bar results currently. Story on TMZ published just a few days ago. I guess like Illinois, in Illinois, we take bar exams are twice a year, and one of them's in July, and the results come out in November, like the first week of November. So all of our lawyers or our young lawyers who want to be licensed are on pins and needles waiting for their results.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a baby lawyer, you got it mailed to you, and random people would get it a day before, a day later. It was nerve-wracking. Now it gets mass emailed to everybody, of course. Kim says that she's confident she's going to get licensed or pass the bar. There was speculation that maybe somebody gave her a sneak peek to her results, but then she denied that was true. She's confident she'll be a qualified lawyer in a couple weeks, which would be like a week from now, basically. A source close to Kim says in this TMZ story, that's simply not true. And what I had to laugh, I'm looking at this TMZ story and links in the show notes, of course, as we always like to provide for you. There is a picture of Kim K in her bikini studying law books. Now, I looked at this for the audience. I did this for you because I care. So she's got her laptop open, what looks to be a law book open, and various papers on a desk. and a sunny day, and she's wearing shades and a bikini. Just like I remember when I was studying, I was out in a Speedo with my shades on, just, pouring over my law books.
That's kind of what I pictured. I mean, how else do you study?
Right, exactly. How one does, not the law library. We don't need that.
No.
So then she's been studying for years, and she confirmed she was done with her courses in May when she threw a party. She revealed at the time she impressively carved out 18 hours a week to practice law during her 6 years in school. Okay, that's interesting. Anybody want to tell us about that? They can reach out to us, rafe@stglaw.com. Email me to tell me how she was doing. And then there's a funny secondary story on this. There's a thing called the baby bar in California, and Kim failed the baby bar like at least a couple times. I think 3 times. The baby bar is if you're an unconventional law student and you're taking law classes at either a unaccredited law school, which the ABA provides accreditation. If they don't accredit the law school, California requires you take this baby bar. I think it's after your first year to kind of prove you learned what you were being taught. That's a screening exam you got to take. Well, she failed it a few times before she passed it. So we wish her the best. Welcome to the profession. And I guess she's bringing some legal knowledge to this new show. And I don't know why she wanted to go to law school, but okay.
Yeah, if I had $1 billion, I'd want to go to law school, I guess. Why not? What else am I going to do with all that money?
If I was loaded, I don't think I'd be going to law school, but okay. Yeah. So that's the scoop on that. Next, tell us about Kelly Ripa. This was kind of interesting because we didn't know this term.
Oh, yeah. So there's this article. Kelly Ripa proposes what is called an airport divorce to Mark Consuelos. And so, this is the Live with Kelly and Mark. So previously it was Strahan, and before that it was Regis and somebody else. And so everyone knows who she is. Essentially, an airport divorce, as we found out, is where couples will go to an airport either separately because, well, let's step back. So people have differing opinions about airport timing and what to do at an airport and the amount of casualness or stress and anxiety that someone has at an airport. So they say, look, the two of us are polar opposites when it comes to airports. And so I want to get there 4 hours ahead of time, walk to my gate, make sure the gate still exists, and then leave and then come back.
I go to the restaurant, get lunch,
Exactly. Sit at one of those like lounges, whatever. If you, go set your book out in the bookstore somewhere.
Yes, I am a serial shop dropper. So I put my book in bookstores.
Instead of buying books, you're going to set a book in there.
Yeah, I give a book free to the bookstore and I put it on the shelf, and I'm curious to see if people buy it. It's legit. This is a real deal. It's a bestseller on Amazon. And, bookstores don't usually carry it because it's not like a John Grisham thriller.
You don't want to read that on a plane.
But I put it on the shelf when I go to an airport. And that's one of my little tricks I do when I'm waiting 4 hours in advance.
Other people will leave with an hour and a half left before the flight departs. They'll leave their house, get to the airport 45, 50 minutes before their flight departs, go through security, run to the gate as the gate's closing.
Oh my God.
And get into the plane. And after your name has been called 3 times at the overhead announcement. So it's like those two people cannot coexist and go to the airport together because neither one wants to do what the other one's doing. And so that's called the airport divorce. Divorce ourselves and I will see you on the flight. So yeah. And so that's the concept. And so, Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos basically were talking about how they're differing on this. And they say, you know what, we do our separate things and then we come together at night.
I'm not surprised that Kelly wants to be there like 4 to 16 hours early, as the story says. And Consuelos is more chill. He's like, an hour and a half is fine, Not an actual divorce, but an airport divorce about your different style and your acceptance of risk. I was almost late for a flight once, and I never want to do that again. I went to Mexico, and I had just gotten one of those fancy new passport cards that came from this with a passport. And I thought, oh, this is just a new high-tech thing. I don't need to carry this book. I just carry this credit card thing, and it'll be great. And it's for it had all the passport information on it, it looked like. I didn't read the fine print. So I try to get on the airplane and they won't let me get on the flight or get through security without my passport. I ended up taking a cab home in a panic because I got there early enough, I thought. And I almost made it back in time, but the flight boarded and my wife and my stepdaughters, one of my sons, ended up going to Mexico without me. After much stress, I got a flight much later in the day and showed up at like 5 p.m. after they'd been there all day. So it was miserable. But I learned that little card is only good for, oddly enough, road travel and boats. Like if I take a little boat into Mexico, I can use this card. And if I drive into Mexico, I can use this card. Also Canada. But I can't use the card to fly into Mexico. So
Interesting.
there you have it. The next story is about the LA family law landscape. Now, I know a cool, really good lawyer in LA. His name's Al Provenziano. And this just an interesting article came up. And it said, I just thought this was interesting because I haven't really observed this in Chicago. Family law professionals, I don't know what this is. This is some website called Financial Content. We'll put the link in the story in the notes. Family law professionals across California have observed a notable uptick in divorce filings and a rising degree of complexity in recent years, driven by economic pressures, changing social norms, and increasingly sophisticated financial portfolios. In this modern climate, and then basically there's this law firm that is kind of using this as a marketing thing. But they pull statewide data that says that divorce rates are steady, but shifting in composition. More cases now involve blended families, significant real estate holdings, business interests, digital assets, and cross-jurisdictional custody disputes. I could see that if we posit or we admit from the story we recently just read today that people tend to be wealthier who are married and they're getting divorced later in life or whatever, there's going to be more assets and more complexity and more children, or it's a second divorce. And so there may be children from a second family too. So, and we know that the cross-jurisdictional thing is happening because we're an increasingly mobile society. People are moving across state lines and live in Chicago and they work for a company in Texas, or they live in different places. They move all over the place much more frequently. And they talk about economic anxiety, like with the mortgage interest rates, things like that, uneven recovery from the pandemic, create additional pressures. So these stresses surface in legal battles over property division, spousal support, and parenting plans. And I think that's fair. When I read this, I thought this was a pretty accurate story. And then the lead guy of this law firm says that a cookie cutter template typically doesn't work well in this type of environment. And I agree with him. His name is Thomas Sands. The firm's called Sands Law Group. Since I'm quoting the story, I should give him his props. Also says that division of digital assets is adding complexity. I agree. That's more complex. First of all, identifying it is true. And then the fluctuating value makes it challenging.
And the lack of regulation, and it's just not your traditional assets. So.
Exactly. So it's this is sort of a press release kind of for this law firm, but I thought it pointed up some real issues that we're experiencing. And I guess now that I read it, when I said before that I don't know that we've seen the increasing complexity, our firm has always generally in the last many years has handled more complex cases. So maybe I'm thinking it's not much more complex, but if you do add crypto, and I will say we're seeing more multi-jurisdictional cases over state lines, more relocation of children or people wanting to move out of state than I ever remember. That was really not an issue when I started doing this 25 years ago. And it's much more common now. The patterns people have with moving for their jobs and moving to find a better tax situation, they're moving to Texas, or people leaving Illinois to go to Florida, Texas, et cetera. And these are typically people who have employment, make it a decent buck where the tax difference makes an impact. Saving 5% income tax or state income tax is a big deal. So I can see that. So it was just sort of an interesting story. I thought this person talks about this landscape shifting. And one thing we've mentioned before on the show too is this mortgage issue where people are locked into their houses because they got these awesome interest rates and they really don't want to leave that house. And anything they're looking at, even if the house is the same price, the mortgage interest is so much higher that their monthly payment
it balloons.
Yeah. And that's something that is affecting cases that we are seeing as well. Tell us about Sia. Oh, pretty girl. Oh, pretty girl. Ba-ram bum. That's my imitation.
That's your Sean Paul.
Sean Paul imitation from Jamaica Mon. If you imagine Michael Scott doing an imitation of Sean Paul, that's just pretty much what I did. So I actually love that song, and I think Sia is great. But we didn't know that Sia was involved in a custody battle. So give us the scoop.
Oh, yeah. So this was news to us. And now we're going to have to look into this and report back some more details about this. But this is a TMZ article that came out 2 days ago, which says Sia wins battle in nasty custody war with estranged husband Daniel Bernard. And essentially, it sounds like from this article, the husband sought an emergency request for full custody of the party's son, basically alleging that, according to this article, abuse, all kinds of just endangerment situations. And she had previously said he had some. Let's step back. So essentially what this is they both have cross allegations against each other about wrongdoing.
Rahul, are they getting divorced or were they never married?
This is a divorce. because first the article says Sia got a huge W in her divorce from her second husband.
Got it. Okay,
right.
thank you. Sorry.
So, no, absolutely. And so essentially, he says she is a threat to this child for numerous reasons.
Okay.
But the judge denied this request on an emergency basis because everything he had cited was information they had previously known. She has celebrity lawyer Laura Wasser, however you say it, out of California. And they essentially argued that the information he presented was old news and there was no evidence to warrant a change of the custody arrangement because everything they had presented existed at the time the previous custody arrangement was made. And so why should that now all of a sudden change this? He alleges sobriety issues for her. She says she's been sober for over 6 months and insists that, she has repeatedly agreed to drug testing for both her and him, but that he refuses to get drug tested. He was under investigation by the LAPD for child pornography as well as other allegations potentially, but that investigation has been closed and no arrest or charges. So they both have a lot of, he claims she planted evidence on him, etc. So it's just a very, what we would call a very messy case.
This guy's name is Bernard. Is his last name?
Bernard.
Okay.
Dan Bernard.
The child's name is Somersault Wonder. Like, really?
That sounds about right.
This kid's got to live with this name. It's like Moon Unit Zappa and, Dweezil. Somehow, if you're Frank Zappa's kid, that was kind of cool. But you're kind of dooming your kid to a lifetime of being made fun of with a nutty name like that. I mean, seriously. Anyway, okay, please proceed.
Yeah. No. I mean, you just got to wonder with these celeb names and who are they doing it for, really, is the question.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you're turning your kid into like a freak show with their name. Like, what are you doing?
So they were married for 2 years. And of course, as we always say on the show, she cited irreconcilable differences as the reason for the split. And she wanted legal and physical custody of their child. She was open for him having visitation at the time. And he's been fighting her for spousal support, also known as spousal maintenance or alimony. And he's asked the judge to order her to pay him more than $250,000 per month in alimony. So we'll look back into this, see what their worth is, income, etc., and report back on a future show. This is her second divorce. She was previously split from Eric Lang back in 2016, again after just over 2 years of marriage.
So really not a great track record for Sia or so
and no
far.
Prenup, I guess.
Come on, no prenup?
Well, I don't know, because he's fighting maintenance, and so we'll have to look over this because we have to see if there's a prenup or not. But if this is your second divorce and you're a celebrity, you really should maybe get a prenuptial agreement.
We want prenup. We want prenup.
Yes, we do. We want prenup. So she's going to want a prenup for marriage number 3. And remember the rule on the I Just Want This Done Divorce podcast, folks. The first time and the second time, it's them. The third time, it's definitely you. So she's got one more left before it's on her.
Fool me once, strike one. Fool me twice, strike 3.
And didn't George Bush famously mess up that quote?
Oh, yeah. You fool me, you can't get fooled again.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me, you can't get fooled again. I think he was thinking of the song by The Who, but there you go. So, okay, let's move on that note. We wish the child the best, because with a name like that and parents like that, you're going to need help. So, allegedly, in my opinion. Okay, next, we got legal topics to talk about. First, we're going to talk about, we got questions from the audience, and we'll state the question and then we'll give an answer. So I'm going to read the question. Rahul's going to answer the question. And this is a little Illinois specific, but there's probably similar things in other states. So we'll try to expand this a little bit to make it a little more broad appeal. But Rahul will explain what this is. But here's the question. Has anyone worked with a parenting coordinator in a high conflict situation? I'm looking for real world experiences, good or bad. My co-parent is a lawyer, who's skilled at charming professionals and using legal tactics to create confusion or drive up conflict. If you've worked with a parenting coordinator who could manage that kind of dynamic, I'd love to hear what helped or what to avoid. So, Rahul, what is a parenting coordinator in Illinois? And can you give some advice on this for this person?
Yeah, so in Illinois, a parenting coordinator is a creation of a Supreme Court rule, who is basically a third party who's qualified, obviously. They are often licensed mental health or family law professionals, like they could be lawyers, they could be mental health people, or they could just be someone who is living in this world who deals with this exclusively, and they need to get on a list, so they need to do stuff to make sure they get on a list. It's not just anybody can be a parenting coordinator.
Right. They have a approved list that the judges choose from, correct?
Right. And they're appointed by a judge to help with, like the individual in this question says, high conflict co-parenting disputes that are outside of court. Because how it works is in court, the court is tasked with determining what is in the child's best interest, and then they come up with an agreement or a judgment, whatever the path it might take. There's often a guardian ad litem involved if there is conflicts, and you typically have a guardian ad litem if you're going to have a co-parenting coordinator. And so once this document, this judgment, or this parenting plan has been created, that might be the be all end all in court for that moment in time, but you're still going to have to live with this document and perform according to that document. And inevitably, you'll see, as time goes on, sometimes these obligations or roles start to fracture a little bit. And so people will start accusing the other person of not complying with the rules, or in high conflict situations, people are going to say, this does not work. When I say up, he or she says down.
The agreement says we're supposed to share Halloween. Well, what does that mean? When does the Halloween thing runs from 2 to 5 o'clock on Friday?
But in my neighborhood, trick-or-treating is only at 6 o'clock.
Right. And then they're at loggerheads. Like then the person refuses to bring the child over. Now they're disagreeing, and court falls short because it's too soon for anybody to run to court. It's also sort of too small to spend a bunch of money on lawyers. So the courts kind of come up with this stopgap system.
Exactly. So rather than coming to court all the time or dealing with issues that, like you said, are more time sensitive, and you're not going to have a guardian ad litem anymore, your lawyers are probably no longer on the case, presumably, because the case is closed. And so the court will hook you up with this person who
Right.
will essentially be on call for you to call and say, this is the issue we have. And they'll talk to both parties. They'll hear both sides of the equation. And then they'll say, this is what you should do.
And they have authority to make those decisions.
Those kinds of decisions. Now, they can't make big decisions for you. Hey, I want to give my kid this vaccine. No, absolutely not. I don't want my kid to get this vaccine. A parenting coordinator can't tell you or give you medical advice and tell you to give the kid a vaccine.
Right.
The parenting coordinator can help the two of you talk that out and come to some sort of a conclusion if it's something as big as that. But something like that, you might have to go back to court on. But something smaller, more scheduling wise, or pick up, drop off, so-and-so didn't let me talk to my child today and they booked a flight earlier than they were supposed to. Those kinds of things, day-to-day issues, a parenting coordinator can help with. And typically it's only high conflict, because if you didn't have high conflict, you could probably just agree to it.
You wouldn't need the parenting coordinator. That parenting agreement just goes in the drawer and you never look at it.
Right, exactly. And if your co-parent is a lawyer who's skilled at charming professionals to create confusion, you want to make sure, and the court or the guardian ad litem may be aware of this person, and they'll suggest a name of a parenting coordinator who's experienced, who's not naive about who they're speaking with, will really weigh all the perspectives before creating a decision. So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Yeah, you'd just want to find an assertive one who's willing to make decisions. These people that's kind of their role, is to make that judgment call.
And it's important to give them some history and context. And, if it would help to have the guardian ad litem of your case speak to them to sort of onboard them a little bit and say, this is what's going on here. Watch out for this. This person usually says something to the effect of this, and that person does that. And that person is more passive and quiet. This person's more dominant. Doesn't mean they have the better position. I mean, if they can give that person that background, then they'll sort of hit the ground running, so to speak.
That's great advice. And the other thing I would suggest is, make sure you've documented everything well. And so you can show the parenting coordinator the communications you've had and the efforts you've made to work things out so they get the full context. And you're not just running to them and complaining. You've got emails showing that you made an effort and explaining what the situation is, and more information is good.
And why your position should be the viable one.
And being reasonable. And that's what we talk about the meta case a lot in the law firm and in the book. And the meta case is the stuff around the case, not the facts in the law, but how people perceive the parties. How does the judge look at you? How does the parenting coordinator think about you? What about the guardian? Are you an unreasonable person? Or are you perceived as an unreasonable person? Are you perceived as a good parent? Are you perceived as somebody who's just blocking the other parent all the time and causing trouble? Those things all play in. I thought it was good to raise. It's Supreme Court Rule 909 in the Illinois Supreme Court rules that governs parenting coordinators. The first program came out of the Cook County courts, and then it was successful, so the state adopted the concept. Courts are slowly implementing it in other places in the state. So it's sort of a good stopgap between having to run a court on these small issues, but they're important to people, trying to defuse these high conflict people. And in a recent seminar I attended, they had a couple coordinators talking. They said it's like physical therapy. The goal is to get off of using the parenting coordinator, not to be there forever. That was interesting because I hadn't heard somebody say that before. And they said that one of the problems they see is some of the parenting coordinators think it's a permanent job and they just keep refereeing things instead of kind of corralling people and getting them to behave better in general and not need them, wean them off. So I thought that was interesting. So anything else on that, Rahul?
No, that's it. Good luck.
So what about this enforcement of judgment one?
So this question is essentially when your former spouse refuses to pay for expenses required in your divorce decree, specifically items related to, in this case, their daughter's school, sports, extracurriculars, etc., and in this case, he ignores my requests for his half of the payment, which was legally required within 30 days, what do I do? Do I have to file paperwork and go back to court? Do I use my same divorce attorney and expect the same divorce judge? Or is this a different civil matter? And then she goes on to say, some other just commentary. And
yeah, so this is classic post-decree, what we call post-decree enforcement. And this is unfortunately common. You do have to file paperwork and go back to court. I mean, if they continue to not comply, what I recommend is start with an email, show them what page of the judgment, the divorce decree, says they're supposed to do whatever they're supposed to do. There's a part of the judgment that says they're supposed to pay for the cell phone or pay off a debt within X amount of time. Show them where that is in the agreement, send an email demanding payment, and tell them you'll take them to court if they don't comply. That's going to be an important exhibit in your motion or petition you're going to file with the court later. We'll give them a reasonable deadline, 7 days, 2 weeks. If they don't comply, then you either do it yourself or you hire an attorney to file in Illinois what's called a petition for rule to show cause. And the rule is you're asking the person to show why the court should not hold them in contempt of court for disobeying a court order. Because when they don't do this stuff, they're disobeying a court order and they can be held in contempt for that and penalized. And the penalty is what's called a purge. And the purge is usually a dollar amount or some action. Like if they're unreasonably withholding a vehicle they're supposed to turn over, the court might say, well, the purge is turning over the vehicle. And the penalty might be a fine, or it could be putting them in jail for some period of time if they're not paying child support, for example. That's how that works. And then unfortunately, the process takes kind of a couple months to go through, 2-3 months, depending on where you are in court. And it costs money and takes time. And you can get your fees paid if you were correct. The judge may order them to pay your attorney's fees and costs, as well as whatever they owe you. So that's the remedy. It's called a petition for rule to show cause in Illinois. Other states probably call it a petition to enforce judgment. That's probably similar. Some states may handle it a little differently, but it's handled as a contempt proceeding in Illinois, generally speaking. So that's basically it. If it's child support, then getting an order for withholding is a good remedy, meaning the support is withheld from their paycheck and automatically turned over to you through a state agency. Those are the remedies for that.
do you have to use the same lawyer?
Oh, God, thank you for asking.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to. You can hire a different lawyer. You can do it yourself. It's really not hard. It's a pain in the butt. The way that I analogize a lot of DIY lawyering is it's like DIY home remodeling. So it's doable, but do you really want to do it? So I know how to drywall and tape and mud drywall, and I can paint. I'm fine at it. I'm not great at it. It takes me probably 3 times longer, 4 times longer than a pro to do it, but I can do it. The question is, do I want to spend my time doing that? Do I have better things to do? And also, do I want to take the risk that I'm going to screw it up? And with plumbing and electrical and all that. Same with lawyering. You can do it yourself. Now there's more information than ever online to help you do it. But do you want to spend your time, money, and effort doing it and bumping through the court system where a lot of the Byzantine, the little details about how and when to do things are unique for each courthouse, and they're kind of a pain in the butt. And you can learn them, but navigating it is a giant hassle. And law firms know this stuff because we navigate these places every day. We literally have big documents that our paralegals keep with all of the little rules that every judge has, because the judges all have different little rules. Everybody likes their own kingdom. And judges, if you hear me, you know it's true. And then every clerk of court has weird rules about where stuff's filed, how it's filed, how many copies, how it's electronically filed. They use different systems. Why the state of Illinois can't have one system, don't get me started. But with all those little intricacies, you got to figure it out yourself. You'll save money, but you're going to spend time and a lot of aggravation. So just have to figure out if the trade-off is worth it. And yes, you can hire a lawyer to do this. Doesn't need to be the same attorney. If you're not happy with your attorney that handled the divorce, then yes, hiring somebody else is a smart move. That's it for that. So let me ask you a question, Rahul. This one is real good. I have a 15-year-old child that doesn't want to see the other parent due to a history of abuse. And I'll say a little caveat after I do this little talk here or this intro. The court is forcing reunification against doctor recommendations. The reunification therapist told our child if they don't see their parent, they will put them in the hospital. Isn't that form of coercion illegal? Doesn't our child have a right to refuse to see or talk to the other parent? What can be done about the threats of reunification therapists to our child? I'm self-represented and can't afford counsel. Okay. A couple of prefatory statements I'll make. I'd like Rahul to talk about this. One is we don't really know the full story. When we're reading this, one thing Rahul said before the show, he's like, what'd you say about this, Rahul, when you read this?
I said, we need to have the full context. We just have a very small slice of what's going on. What happened before this? What happened? Why is the child not seeing the other parent? What's the context? What else is happening in this case? Who's saying what? We just don't have everything. So asking a very, very fact-specific, pointed question, it's not fair to anybody for this question to be answered because it's not a question that can really be answered. But we'll talk about things we can do here.
In our support network, the Illinois Divorce Support Network on Facebook, one thing I say quite often, and it's a pinned post, is you need to explain the context of your question because context is critical. What's the status of your case? Are you post-decree? Are you pre-decree, meaning you're not divorced yet? Are you divorced? Is there a temporary order in place? What is that order? What is the custody order? If there's a parenting judgment, what does it say? What is the history of abuse? Is it last week? Is it 5 years ago? And the child, has the child already been ordered to be with the other parent and you're violating a custody order, a parenting order? We don't know. Rahul, can you address, I think, a couple things? Let's talk about the general situation of a teenage child and let's zoom out and just say, what about teenage children doing kind of what they want to do when there's a custody order in place and they refuse to see a parent? So let's not put the abuse in it, but let's just talk about child refuses to see other parent. What's that like? What's the deal on that?
Yeah. So the court would initially, what you would want is, regardless of where you are, where you fall, whether you're the person who the child is with, who doesn't want to see the other parent, or if you're the other parent, irrespective of that, a guardian ad litem would need to be appointed on the case. And they serve as the eyes and ears for the court. And they will talk to the child first and foremost. They'll talk to the parties. They'll talk to anybody else who serve as collateral to then really figure out what's actually going on, dive into why the child does not want to go see the other parent, etc. Now, that being said, as is sort of understood and is just commonly discussed or set out in Illinois divorce, is a kid doesn't get to drive the bus on who they see and who they don't see. Kids are kids. Now, the older the kid gets, the more autonomy they'll necessarily have. You're not going to make a 16 or 17-year-old do something they don't want to do. The reality of it is if your 15-year-old, 16, 17 doesn't want to see the other parent, they're not going to see the other parent. There's only so much you can do to force someone to do it. You don't want the child to run away or anything. So that's important. But that being said, the goal of the court is not to keep kids away from parents. It's to see how can we bridge those gaps when the child is still a minor under the law and the court has jurisdiction over them. They'll try to give them the tools and sort of rekindle some of this relationship so that as the child ages out, as we say, hits the age of majority, graduates from high school, etc., and the court no longer can tell the child, or not tell the child, but tell the parent what to do and what not to do. The child will still have the tools, and the parents will still have this rekindling of this relationship that has enough sort of foundation where it can continue to grow. So, and therein comes in the reunification therapy, right? The court will say, well, if the child doesn't want to see the parent, I'm not going to make the child see the parent, but you don't get to just do nothing. You're going to have to go sit in a room with this therapist and the other parent, talk out what these issues are, figure it out, and we'll just see where that goes, I guess.
Courts are concerned. They don't know what's really going on under the hood.
Oh, sure.
So they're like, well, maybe the parent with the child is gatekeeping and keeping the kid away from the other parent. And maybe this stuff's overblown and we don't know. Using that reunification is kind of like a way to get to the heart of this thing. What about the very practical approach of the other parent who hasn't seen the child when they're dealing with a teenager? What about the issue like saying, okay, using the parenting agreement as a battering ram to try to force the kid to come over and litigate against their mom or their dad? Is that a good idea, or is there a more practical way you can get the kid to come want to see you?
It's just sort of framing that question. It's sort of like, think about it. What do you think is going to happen if you have a child who doesn't want to see you, old enough to express their desire? And, under the law, they might say, well, the child doesn't get to say what happens. It doesn't happen. That's just, under the law, just but one factor. There's like 17 of them. And there's factors that the court will consider in determining what the child's best interest is. But preference of the child is one factor. But again, the practical reality is your child is old enough, like middle, late teens, does not want to see the person they don't want to see beat up the person they want to be with. It's a means to an end. If you're trying to engender some affection, some relationship, this is not the way to go about it.
The advice I've given people on the other side of this is at 18 years old, the court order disappears. And if you're a jerk to that kid or their parent, they're going to disappear too, and they're never going to want to see you. Now, if you don't care about that, that's fine. But if you want to see your child and they're 15, 16 years old, that's a very short period of time until they're 18, and they're not going to care anymore. You threatening them isn't going to do you any good. So I always tell people better to create positive conditions where the kid wants to see you and be a nice person so they're encouraged to see you rather than browbeating them into seeing you, because that's going to run out of road really fast.
Exactly. So if you want to go to therapy, if the child's like, I don't want to go to the therapy every week, it's too busy, it's too much on my schedule, I want to go every other week, give them the space. Say, sure, no problem. You know what? Because again, you can't force someone into liking you.
My dad always said you can't make somebody love you. And that's very true with spouses, children, whatever. You can certainly contribute to the conditions. You can try to help make it better, or you can decide to make it worse. So one question I wanted to respond to was, doesn't the child have a right to refuse to see or talk to their parent? No, they really don't. But people need to understand, once you get the court involved in your life, then the state is now involved in your business. And the state decided, it is a government policy, that it is good for children to see both parents. Once you involve the government and the judge, you lose a degree of control of your children. And you need to remember that when you get involved in a divorce case. And it's not always something you want to see. You may not agree with how that goes, which is why it behooves people to settle these cases and not have a trial and not fight. So because when you start fighting, you get the judge involved, because the judge is charged with protecting children of the state of Illinois. And the court will do that. They look out for the best interest of the child, not best interest of the parents. Best interest of the child is the standard.
Wishes of the parent are just, again, one factor.
People say, well, I want my visitation. That's not how it is. The child has a right to be with both parents. It's all looked at from the kid's perspective. Here's a little shocker for those of you who haven't been involved in this business. Even serious child abusers get to see their children under controlled conditions. Serious drug abusers see their children under controlled conditions. And if the person corrects themselves and cleans up if they're a drug addict or whatever, or they have behaved well after behaving badly, the court wants to see reunification ultimately over time. And it might be a slow progression. It might take years, but that's where the court's going to head in general, because again, the general principle is involvement of both parents is a net good. There are extreme examples where there's horrible abuse and stuff like that. And a court will probably restrict somebody's parenting time quite substantially to being only, a couple hours a week or something like that. But that's an extreme, unusual case. Let's move on and tell us about the celebrity divorce attorney, this article about Gen Z and relationships.
Yeah, so this is an article from CNBC by Geely Malinsky, and essentially she's interviewed an attorney named Jackie Combs, who was a family and divorce attorney in LA. So she's essentially saying, that she sees people getting divorced as a lack of communication. She says, if you can't communicate, you're not going to be able to get through the relationship. So she says, the Gen Z clientele are surprisingly, her words, adept at communicating about one key thing, which is money. So she said there's a lot more financial transparency because Gen Z is all about connectivity, and that they, quote unquote, prioritize transparency. They say that a majority, 78% of Gen Zers emphasize financial responsibility when it comes to finding a romantic partner, 70% prioritize financial behaviors, and 70% prioritize financial attitudes, according to a 2025 Bank of America survey. And they're talking about money earlier on in the relationship. I know previously it used to be taboo to talk about money and saying, hey, let's not go there. We don't want this to be. But that's something that Gen Z really is open about. They want to be aligned on spending habits, budgeting, etc. And so it's one of those where they think the discussion, the communication is key to the transparency and the openness. So, yeah.
So the interesting thing about Jacqueline Combs, she works at Blank Rome, which is a monster law firm. And they do all kinds of areas of practice, and they have, I guess, some family law attorneys in the firm as well. The interesting thing is her original background, it says, this is according to her own bio, She came from the corporate world. She was corporate counsel for private and publicly traded companies, advised on business and legal issues before focusing on family law. So that background is useful when you're dealing with complex assets and estates. So now it makes sense that she's known for negotiation skills and settlement-oriented approach. That's cool. That's somebody I'd like to talk to. She's been a legal commentator in various blot-up press. Very interesting. UCLA, Chapman University School of Law, JD. Interesting. Never knew about Jackie. Maybe I reach out. That's interesting. Get her on the show. That whole celebrity world is interesting to us. We handle high net worth, high income cases, but usually not celebs. Chicago's not known as a hotbed of celebrities. People have money, but they're not stars.
You got to be in New York or LA for that.
Yeah. So it's just a whole interesting universe that we don't typically deal with. Last but not least, we got to introduce the great Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is a doctor. He's an MD, a psychiatrist, I believe, an MBA, covers health topics and other things. He's a contributor to Forbes. This article is entitled, this just got published. It's very spooky. Bruce Lee is a master at catching trends. He's just great at it. Rahul and I have found his stories. We'll Google fill in the blank issue, and Bruce Lee's written a story about it in an interesting and entertaining way. We want to get him on the show. I've pitched him before and haven't heard back. I would love to have him on the show for even a brief interview. So here's a story. Halloween can be this is a quote from him. Halloween can be a scary time if you're single. This is just beautiful work here. It can be a not so bootiful reminder that you don't have the romantic kind of boo in your life. 2 uses of boo in this one sentence. This is like Hemingway right here. In fact, results from a recent survey by dating.com suggest Halloween can feel even lonelier for singles than even gasp Valentine's Day. But before you drown your sorrows in a bathtub of candy corn, that's also clever. By the way, Brock's is the only proper brand of candy corn to purchase. Everything else tastes like fiberglass. Trust me, I know this. I've eaten enough of them to make my head spin and have my pancreas explode. But before you drown your sorrows in candy corn, there are things you can do to make the season around October 31 more of a treat than a trick for you. By the way, Rahul, does it bother you that they call it spooky season?
Grinds my gears, as they say.
Does it really?
Especially if you spell season with SZN. Oh.
Yes. Oh, exactly. Right. Season. We're so lazy.
Yeah.
We have to spell SZN. When did spooky season start? A few years ago, it came out of nowhere.
Yep, exactly. And I don't
Why
know
don't we just
why.
say it's Halloween?
It's Halloween and it's not spooky season. I don't get it.
Spooky
I'm not a big costume guy. So
Well, there's also this whole decorating thing's gotten out of control.
Mhm.
I mean, now we've got the people with the fiberglass skeletons and
Oh yeah.
you've seen, I don't know if you drive around our town, I'm in the west suburbs, people buying these enormous skeletons that are huge. They look like they're from movie sets. I don't know where the hell you put that thing once you're done with it. Like,
Yeah.
you got to drag that giant skull out of the Target or wherever the heck you bought this thing. Put this giant thing together. It's like 12 feet tall in your yard. Where do you store that thing? And there's people with a bunch of these things on the roof and the front yard. They go crazy with it. Those Christmas light guys who bolt the lights to your house, they're geniuses because they come around now and they pitch people on Labor Day and they say, you want the Halloween lights up, and then they're ready to go for Christmas. And you change the colors to like the Halloween colors.
Yeah, 2 holidays for the price of 1, right? So
Yeah. And they do those permanent lights. Okay. Dating.com survey of the respondents, 59% indicated Halloween is one of the most emotionally difficult holidays. What? 58% said it's worse than Valentine's Day. 79% felt lonely seeing families trick or treat. Okay. 73% noted social media makes the loneliness, surprise, surprise, worse. Yeah, because you're doom scrolling on that thing and you see all these people purportedly having fun on holidays and you're sitting there by yourself doom scrolling. Get out of the house, folks. Get out the house. Dating.com looked at Google data and found searches for alone on Halloween have gone up by 133%, and Halloween anxiety, which I've never heard of, by a whopping 765% in the past several weeks. Let's not get too excited about Halloween anxiety going up in the past several weeks because you're not searching for Halloween anxiety in June. Okay, maybe that happened in previous years. We don't know. It looks like quite a few people are being haunted by not having a partner. Good work, Bruce Lee. Here we go again. He's killing it. In other words, there are plenty of pumpkins without that spice. Wow. So if you're feeling alone, Rahul, you're not alone. Now, there's actually an interview here. There's more. Why might Halloween be a time when singles are particularly worried about how they bat in the dating game? The thing that's funny about it is, this isn't AI because he's laughing when he's writing this stuff. So Jamie Braun's licensed relationship therapist and resident expert at dating.com mentions several factors. One is summer is over. Womp womp. Yes, it is. And we had a very warm summer and a nice fall, and boom, it's cold now. Many people are distracted during summer. Well, we talked about summer flings and how many were appropriate on a previous episode.
Yes,
It
we
turns
did.
out some people think several are appropriate. Multiple flings. Many times people are distracted during summer, but are more aware of their dating situation in the fall. It's that Hallmark movie season.
It's cuffing season, as they say.
It's cuffing season. Thank you. The second factor is sad. A seasonal affective disorder. Less daylight, they get more depressed, and that's understandable. You got to get that bright light exposure, folks, that vitamin D. People are more depressed in the fall and winter. The days are shorter, the temperature's colder. Boy, we know that in Chicago. You got to get out on those sunny days. Even if you don't have official SAD diagnosis, it's common to feel a little more down when you fall in the colder, less sunlighty months. Yes, I agree. Bronstein made an off-the-cuffing remark.
There you go.
Rahul, there it is. Pointing out it's also the beginning of cuffing season. I didn't read to this part yet. In a recent installment of A Funny to Pick for Psychology Today, I'm going to check that one out. I wrote about cuffing season, October to March. It's the beginning of cuffing season when singles scramble to find themselves a short-term romantic partner to figuratively handcuff themselves to get through what could be the loneliest part of the year. So getting spooked by your single status may not be completely specific to Halloween, but part of the overall season. You're rushing to get the cuffs on somebody. And Halloween is a time when people are blatantly showing you that they're having a good time on social media. Yes, they are. They're in the hay rides and the pumpkin patch, and they're trick-or-treating with their kids and whatnot, and you're going to feel bummed out. He says, when you see the Halloween photos posted on TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, Vampire Freaks, what's Bruce Lee into? Or whatever social media platform you frequent. I haven't been on Vampire Freaks. You may wonder, will you ever get your sexy nurse? This is me quoting Dr. Lee, your bottomless chaps butler, your Iron Man, or whatever. All right. Anyway, you get it. But we had to have fun with that one for Halloween. So
Yeah.
enjoy the rest of spooky season, SZN. And let's be careful out there with your plastic pumpkin candy bucket that you're carrying with the black strap that you got from mom back in the day. Or if your mom was cheap, you just had a jewel bag for those of you in the Chicago area.
Nothing wrong with that.
But if you were fancy, you had the little plastic jack-o'-lantern bucket that you had with the black strap on it. If you have a little brother or sister, when you're walking with them trick-or-treating, this is in the old days, your parents didn't go with you. That's how old I am. So we'd go wander the streets, just like, make sure you keep an eye on your sister, was what my parents would say. My baby sister would be with me. And the parents didn't go with us with a wagon full of beer. That's like this new thing. It's become this drinking thing for the parents. There's a bunch of people rolling with their kids, getting sauced, going trick-or-treating. Or the other one I like is the minivan rolls up, the door opens like a Huey helicopter in Vietnam, and the kids bail out. They run up to the door, grab stuff, run back, the door slams shut, and they roll to the next house. That's not trick-or-treating.
No, that's being lazy. You walk the streets and you earn candy.
It's motorized infantry rolling up to your house and attacking your candy bowl. Then you get the outer neighborhood people coming. You don't know where they're from. They're coming in to raid your candy. And also the two old trick-or-treaters. The kid who comes up who's got a mustache, and he's like, I'd like some candy. And they grab a giant handful of half of your bowl is gone. Anyway, I digress. So let's talk about, it's Halloween today, by the way, as we record this and we're live. So happy Halloween, everybody. Be safe out there for the rest of spooky season. Okay. Rahul, let's tell everybody a little bit about the show, and first tell them how they can find you online.
Yeah, you can find me at Chicago Divorce or on LinkedIn.
Rahul Iyer is one of our lead attorneys. He's a partner at STG Divorce Law in Chicago. I'm the managing partner, and we've been at this a long time. The firm's been around for 30 plus years. STG Divorce Law at stglawfirm.com. We are one of the premier divorce firms in Illinois. Just Google it, look us up on Grok or ChatGPT or whatever, and ask about the top 10 law firms in Chicago or Illinois. We're on that list. We're proud to be. We serve smart, successful people throughout Chicagoland. We have offices all across Chicagoland, and we have great people who take care of our great clients. So check us out. We'd appreciate talking with you. We do consultations all the time, talking with people about their divorce situations or questions about prenups, postnups, post-decree issues. So when they have an issue about enforcing an order or modifying an order, we do that work too. So we have a referral network across the country and in Canada. Let us know if you need a referral. We know great lawyers across the United States and in the great country, nation of Canada. Rahul's from there. and make referrals there all the time. We're happy to do that as a service at no charge. And we got some goodies to tell you about. So follow us on social media. We are at STG Divorce on X, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm at Rayford Palmer. Or just Google my name, Rayford Palmer. You'll find all my socials and all the news articles and podcasts and TV appearances I've had. We have all kinds of free content for you on the web and on our website at stglawfirm.com. We've got tons of material available at the STG Divorce Law YouTube channel. The podcast page for the I Just Want This Done Divorce podcast is separate from the law firm. That's loaded with all 40 previous episodes of this program. And we have tons and tons of content. Each show is about an hour minimum. And like this episode, we cover hardcore legal topics and fun stuff going all the way back about a year and a half. And there is stuff to learn about every topic in divorce we've discussed over the last 40 episodes. Now this is 41. So that is a rich mine of material. And you can just search YouTube, search the channel and find the topics that interest you and just cherry pick those things. Skip to the timestamp you want to watch about and watch it, or look at the transcript, whatever you want. Then our YouTube videos, we cover topics in depth where we talk about things like relocation of children, child support, what a petition for divorce looks like and what should be in one, what it all means. We break down many topics in those videos at no charge, and we're always producing more. So check out all that content. Of course, we have our Illinois Divorce Support Network, our private Facebook group, 1,500 members and growing, free to join, anonymous to post. Check that one out. All the links are going to be below in the show notes for all this content. And also don't forget my best-selling divorce book, I Just Want This Done, How Smart, Successful People Get Divorced Without Losing Their Kids, Money, and Minds. Available on Amazon, Kindle, Audible, and where all great ebooks are sold, also occasionally in airports. Thanks a lot for watching the show. Thanks for listening. We love you guys. Leave us comments. Let us know if you enjoyed the show. And thank you. Have a good one.